My guest today is Bill Moseley. He has been a revered figure in the horror scene, terrifying film lovers for nearly 4 decades. With an impressive career that includes more than 100 films, many of which achieved cult-like status, he's one of the most easily recognized faces in the genre. He's breathed life into several of the most memorable and downright nasty horror movie characters in recent memory. From his feature debut as CHOPTOP, the deranged member of the cannibalistic family in Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, to the demented serial killer Otis Driftwood in Rob Zombie's Firefly trilogy, it's clear Bill Moseley wants to scare you. His performances of Chop Top and Otis Driftwood have earned Bill Moseley a place in the Pantheon of horror among an elite group of actors who've portrayed not one, but two movie monsters. He stands shoulder to shoulder with icons such as Lon Chaney, Boris Karloff, and modern tormentors like Kane Hodder. Simply put, Bill Moseley is a legend of the horror genre. Unlike the despicable characters he gleefully inhabits on screen, Bill Moseley is friendly, down-to-earth, curious, intelligent, and endlessly fascinating. Please enjoy my interview with Bill Moseley. My guest today is Bill Moseley. Bill, it's a pleasure to see you.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
Also, happy early birthday.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I've got 2 more days at my current age. And so I'm trying to squeeze everything I can out of them.
There's a lot I want to ask you, but I know you're on limited time, so I'm going to try and move quickly. Your father is Spencer Moseley. He was the chief executive of the Railway Express Agency. Your mother is Virginia Gigi Moseley. She was a freelance journalist and authored 2 children's books. You were born in Stamford, Connecticut, and your due date was Halloween. Your mother waited for you at the hospital with a plastic pumpkin full of candy, but it was November 11th when you arrived. In 1954, your family moved to Barrington, Illinois.
Oh my
came
gosh,
early.
all right.
Your parents belonged to a play reading group who staged plays in members' homes and where you were recruited for different parts. Here you are as Diego in the play Christopher Columbus. You are the one on the pony.
Yes, I am.
What were you like as a child, and what was it like growing up in Barrington?
It was great because we actually lived in Barrington Hills, so it was outdoors. I spent most of my waking hours either at school or outside with my friends, a couple of friends from up West County Line Road. I was really into exploring, climbing trees, catching frogs and crawdads. A lot of outdoor stuff. I was really just a child of the wilderness.
Before the influence of movies, what scared you the most as a child? Was there a ghost in the attic or a monster under the bed?
I don't think so. Let me see. I mean, I was certainly scared of my parents, their retribution. And when I was a little kid, I used to, my parents were old school. So if I said a dirty word, I got my mouth washed out with soap. Usually I would be taken down by the ear because I have big ears, down to the basement and actually had to bite on a bar of lava soap, which is an old kind of a laundry soap with pumice in it. That's why they call it lava. So there was that, spankings, a lot of battle of wills. It's 3 boys. My mom grew up as an only child, daughter of a bank president, so she was really not prepared for the onslaught or the proper rearing of 3 boys. And then my dad was, he was a, football player, war hero, captain of industry, liked to go out and fish and hunt. And so he was kind of the hard ass. Mom was also religious. So that kind of added another layer to it. And we actually were raised as Christian Scientists. So we were, whenever we had some kind of a cold or flu or something, we were told that it was an illusion. So that was kind of like, so you put it all together and, no wonder I loved monsters and dinosaurs.
Many kids are first. Oh, sorry. Many kids are first introduced to horror through fairy tales and children's stories like Hansel and Gretel or Three Billy Goats Gruff. Was there a particular children's story that frightened you or excited you as a child?
Yes, I mean, we had lots of wonderful illustrated fairy tale books, Arthur Rackham and Kay Nielsen, and all kinds of really fantastic books. Actually, if you don't mind, I will just go get one right here.
You don't mind.
I've got one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, this is Sinbad. You know, this was
Oh, that's awesome.
fabulous, cool book that was probably printed in the 1800s or something. But there are amazing illustrations in it that all have little plates. You know, so that's what I grew up on. You know,
Oh,
just
that's
beautiful
so
little
cool.
cool little plates, beautiful illustrations, and so that was really where my fantasy began. It was yeah, Edmund Dulac is the D-U-L-A-C is the author. I mean the illustrator. So
That's
a lot of
awesome.
I did a lot of fantasy, but mostly it was books. I also loved watching horror movies, and the Three Stooges was a big
Ooh,
part of my really molded my childhood.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
As speaking of movies, as a child, we would sneak and watch shock theater on the black and white Zenith with the volume turned down so your parents wouldn't hear. The Blob was your first horror movie you saw in the theater. Your mother took you to see The Fly and Return of the Fly, where an usher in a fly mask scared you half to death. Did your
Yes.
parents have any restrictions on what you were able to watch as a kid?
Not really, no. I mean, only because, you know, I lived in rural Illinois, so there really wasn't a big, you know, the movie theaters weren't exactly showing, you know, hot stuff. I mean, every Saturday I'd go down to the Catlow Theater in Barrington, and which is still there. It's very beautiful with old, you know, it's beautifully decorated. It's an old movie theater. And I would watch, there was a Saturday fair. So there was I remember a movie called Dinosaurus. There was also The Mask, which was a 3D movie where you had the little mask glasses. Certainly the original 13 Ghosts. So there were giant Gila monsters. So there were just a bunch of movies that became kind of stepping stones to my, what would turn out to be my career. But I loved all them.
You attended Hotchkiss School in Lakeville, Connecticut. Go
Ooh.
Bearcats! The school was established in 1891 to prepare young men for Yale University. The paper was The Record, and the colors were blue and white. What were you like in high school, and how much of your high school experience do you think informs who you are today?
Well, you know, it was actually, I used to call it high school, but really, in fact, it's prep school. So it's a preparatory school. It was also you know, it was basically, you went away and you stayed there for 9 months or whatever it was, sleeping in the dormitory. So it was, you know, it was not a local school by any stretch. You know, what it taught me was how to, you know, how to lie. How to get away with stuff. I was very proud of the fact that by my senior year there was a poll in our yearbook, the Michianza, and one of the categories was gets caught with the most, and I was number one. I would get caught with the most. But what that doesn't, that's almost like looking at at an iceberg and you see what's above the surface. That's the get caught with the most. The below the surface is what I got away with. And I was quite a free spirit, I suppose. And the Hotchkiss was not really, they weren't happy to have a free spirit. I think their whole philosophy back then was basically to, you know, break the little kids, break their spirits and mold them into something that's useful for whether it's business or politics or I don't know, whatever it was. But I was not that. I was a little wild kid. And it's so funny because I just went to my 50th reunion a couple of years ago. So it was class of 69. So that was whatever, 2019, 4 years ago. And one of the things that they were doing in the interest of total, what is it called? Not clarity. It's, you know, what is it? Oh, transparency, as my wife just told me. Yes, transparency. Was that they allowed all of the alums to come back and look through their files. and my file went back. I mean, our files 50 years ago were written papers, and maybe they were mimeographed, but they were, you know, they were written documents. It wasn't a computer or anything. And I actually noticed that so many of my reports, my assessments, were very negative. I gotta say, it was like, you know, he's got to grow up. He's, you know, doesn't, you know, obey the rules. He's a little, you know, kid. He's, you know, he's got to mature if he wants to be a man or something. I don't know what, all this stuff. And it was really not very flattering. And, you know, what I took away from that was, first of all, you know, I survived. That was good. But also I had a great deal of compassion for that little guy, because it was a tough environment, and I was, you know, I was this little happy guy, and you know, it wasn't really my, you know, it wasn't fertile ground for me. Let's put it that way.
Your family was musical. Your mother played ragtime on the piano, and you'd have sing-alongs on car trips. As an adult, you'd form the experimental band the Cornbugs with Buckethead and the projects Bill and Phil and Mr. Machine. You also sang in Repo, the genetic opera. Do you think more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
Oh, heartbreak by a long shot.
Do you have any reason why you think that?
Yes, because, you know, it's with heartbreak, there is a vocal reaction, which is and that, I think, leads to maybe that's the birth of singing. I don't know. Like, you know, it's love is like, but you know, you know, it's pain is louder than, you know, than love, I guess. I don't know. But I loved one of the things, you know, growing up in a tough family was one of our outlets. My two brothers and me formed the Moseley Brothers band. My younger brother was a genius piano player, boogie woogie, fantastic piano player. My older brother was a piano player, but learned the bass just to serve the band. I was a drummer, so I drummed. I also played the harmonica, and then I would sing and make up the words as we went along. And so that really kind of, and my mom was a wonderful piano player. We even had a dog named Duke, a little wire-haired terrier that sang along. Get on the piano, and mom would start playing like Fat Twall or some kind of boogie woogie, and the dog would like.
That's amazing.
So we actually still have a cassette somewhere of Duke the Singing Dog. And
that's amazing.
D-U-K with an umlaut over the U.
That's awesome.
That was actually how we kind of, you know, processed, the pain and the challenges of growing up in our family. And so it worked out just great, because when I met Buckethead, Buckethead was very ephemeral, and probably still is. I haven't seen him in a while, but he would show up one day and then you wouldn't hear from him for 6 months. So basically, you had to do it. If you were doing some music, you would really have to know that this was all you're going to get, and so you better do it now. And so I was very good at just, you know, winging, making up lyrics. And with the Moseley Brothers. And so we're playing with Buckethead. He'd start playing something and I'd start riffing. And sometimes I'd bring in poems or whatever. And, you know, I would just hear his music and that would inspire me. And so it was good at that, because I knew that I probably wouldn't see him for, you know, months. It wasn't like you're going to go in there and tinker and, you know, do a second take. I think with all the Cornbug songs, there was never a second take that I can remember. I think every song that we ever did, and there was about 50 of them on all those CDs, that every one was first take, which is actually kind of cool. It's not an excuse. It's actually kind of, because they're good. And just imagining that that's just a first take every time, just making it up, except for some of the things I had written before. But yeah, it was pretty fantastic. I love Cornbugs and I love Buckethead.
That's awesome. Here you are, having just graduated an English major from Yale University in 1974. You worked that summer at Larson's Fish Market in Martha's Vineyard. You were an agent at Andrew's Swimming Pool Company and worked as a copywriter. In 1976, at Double Bill at the Paramount Theater, you saw Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon and Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time. The movie was so unsettling that you'd rewatch it whenever you could in hopes to desensitize yourself to it. In an age of active shooter drills and COVID lockdowns, do you think horror movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre can provide catharsis for kids trying to cope with these real-life fears?
I sure hope so. I'm sure. I don't know. I think it's, that a lot of, age-old criticism of horror movies is that it teaches people bad habits, and you don't want to. If somebody's right near the edge, a horror movie could push them over, and they could become violent and crazy and run around with a chainsaw or gun or whatever the heck it is. I think that there's certainly a catharsis in a lot of horror movies, because a lot of them are usually morality tales, which means that there is, that it basically you start out with, the good and the bad, and then the monster comes in as kind of, the punishment of justice, divine justice, or infernal justice, and the bad guys usually succumb to the monster, and then finally there's like final girl, like let's say Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, there's the good kid triumph. So I mean, that in that sense, I guess it's fun. It's also very exciting. It's also, I think, horror movies are wonderful because they take all of the nameless fears and all of the crazy stuff that we can't control in our own lives and turn it into, Freddy or Jason or Otis. For that matter. And, and then you see kind of, you get to materialize it and you see the struggle. And that sometimes is very cathartic.
New York, 1978. You became a freelance writer for Omni magazine, among others, reporting on various topics, but one interest was cattle mutilations, which led you to getting your first acting gig. You give a wonderful account of this on the Casualty Friday podcast with our friends Kane Hodder, Felissa Rose, and Tiffany Shepis. I would recommend my audience to listen to it. What I wanted to ask was, how did you get your interested in cattle mutilations, and what's your conclusion on what was happening?
I was working in New York City. I was editor-in-chief of a little monthly newspaper called CB Bible. And I remember I was reading a Wee magazine, OUI, kind of a softcore porno magazine with kind of like Playboy, a poor man's Playboy, with a bunch of pictures, but also some articles. And one was an article called "The Night on the Trail of the Night Surgeons" by Ed. I'll come up with his name soon, but he was a member of the Fugs. There's a band called the Fugs, Fugs, and Ed, whatever his last name is, had written this article about the cattle mutilations and the mystery behind them, because they were happening. No one was able to figure out who was doing it. There were no footprints. There were a lot of crazy things were going on. It's right in the middle of the 70s, maybe 74, 75, 76. And people or something was mutilating cattle in the Western United States, in the cattle country, like Colorado, like New Mexico, Montana. And the cows were it was so weird because their blood was being drained. And everything about them was, they were mutilated because they were surgically not really dissected, but the tongue was removed, the eyeballs, the udders, the genitalia, if it's a bull. So all kinds of, specific things were removed, but they were removed with surgical precision, which was actually very freaky. And also the blood was completely drained, which couldn't even happen if you hung a cow up and slit its throat. I'm not suggesting that. But if you did that and let it all of the blood drain, there would still be about a third of the blood supply stuck in the veins and arteries of the cow. And these were just like, exsanguinated. That's a good word. And so I was completely excited about it. That's my kind of like, wow, that's a mystery. So as I became editor of CB Bible, that was my editorial quest, was trying to figure out who's mutilating these cows. And so I ended up, getting a bunch of stringers. There was a guy, Bill Jackson, in Sterling, Colorado. He was the photographer for the Sterling Journal-Courier, or whatever the local paper was. And he had these wonderful pictures of cattle mutilations. So I got some from him. I got some from another stringer in New Mexico, and all these pictures were coming in, these 8x10 black and white news quality pictures of mutilated cows. And I was just thinking, wow, that's amazing. And so while that was going on, I noticed one day in the paper there was an ad for, I think it was not an ad, but it was a little piece in on the social page of the New York Post called Page 6, and there was a little piece about a movie called Cows that was about to be shot by a live entertainment out of Hollywood with Alan Rudolph, who is quite an accomplished director, directing this movie. And I called him up and I said, hey, and I got in touch with the producer of Cows, and I said, hey, I know about cattle mutilations. I've got pictures of them. And she goes, well, wow, we'd love to use some pictures of mutilated cows in our town hall scene. And so I said, and she said, but we can't pay very much. Of course, that's a good producer. And can't pay very much. Heard that a bunch of times. But anyway, so I said, well, I don't really need any money. I would just like to get into the Screen Actors Guild. And she said, well, maybe we can work something out. So when the movie was made, it was actually retitled Endangered Species. I think it was 1984, maybe 83, 82, whatever it was. I got a job. I got a speaking part as a cab driver in New York City before they all go out to Colorado and chase the cattle mutilators. But that got me into the Screen Actors Guild because I had a speaking part, and so I got into SAG thanks to I rode a mutilated cow into my acting career. In terms of what do I think personally, I think it was there was something called I forgot the name of the column, but there was like it was some kind of anonymous witness column, and you could for the Denver Post, and you could actually send in stuff, accusing people or pulling, letting, it's anonymous, so you could whatever you wanted to write about. And one of the columns was about cattle mutilations, and the person that wrote this little letter to the editor it said that he or she thought it was farmers from another solar system, and they were mutilating the cows, and they were taking these certain sensory organs in their blood because they were checking, because cows are a good they were actually very perfect animals to determine how much radiation there was in the world. And I just thought that made as much sense as anything, because sometimes there used to be, I remember one time there was the Chinese, exploded a nuclear bomb in China, but then the radiation came across the Pacific in a cloud, and there was rain, and the cows in Pennsylvania ate the grass with the radioactive rain, and they became, the radiation was passed through to their milk. Yeah. And so anyway, all of that stuff was just fascinating for me. So that's how I got into it.
We don't have the time for each story, but I am fascinated by this period and want to ask a broader question about it. You contact a producer filming a movie about cattle mutilations and earn yourself a speaking part and your SAG card, as you just mentioned. Then you're writing in New York, but decide to perform manual labor at the Box R Ranch in Green River, Wyoming, digging ditches in the hot sun next to a sugar freak who inspires your short film called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Back in New York, you gather your friends and shoot the film at Sonia's Hair Fashions on Staten Island. You shop it around unsuccessfully to Saturday Night Live and Fridays. Omni sends you to California to cover the making of 2010. Here's the issue right here. While in California, you show Texas Chainsaw Massacre to a friend, and he has an office across from Tobe Hooper. Hooper loves the film, talks to you, and in 1986, you're in Austin, your head is shaved, and you're sitting around the Brook Hollow Motor Inn playing gin rummy with the cook, and you're playing Chop Top in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Whoa! I see a pattern. You have intellectual curiosity. You're not afraid of hard work or pulling on threads to see what unravels. And you're fearless to step through doors when opportunity knocks. What was there a life philosophy you followed? Was it restlessness? Were these plans premeditated at all?
No, they were not. You know, I am one that I used to be confounded by people that would have 5-year plans, or a kid that's 7 years old that already knows he wants to be a doctor, you know, when he grows up. I mean, I never had that. I still don't. And so what I would do, the only way I would make sense of my life is by looking back, not looking ahead. I go, okay, well, yeah, I did that. Oh, I see there's a pattern there. Whoa, who knew? I certainly don't know that at the time. But yeah, I have always been very curious. I'm into science. I'm into, obviously, cattle mutilations, horror movies, all kinds of things. And I'm a father. I have 2 daughters, 2 grown daughters, one 36, the other one just turned 25. I'm married. That's a whole adventure. And I'm a homeowner. That's also a whole adventure. I'm just so, I just figure that there's got to be something bigger than me guiding the course of my life. And I'm very appreciative so far. Thanks a lot, man. Whatever that is, keep it up.
You had roles in the 1988 remake of The Blob, Pink Cadillac, and Army of Darkness. Then you play Johnny in Tom Savini's remake of The Night of the Living Dead. You reprise Chop Top to MC the Igor Awards and meet Rob Zombie. A month later, you're offered the amazing character of Otis B. Driftwood in the Firefly trilogy. That is House of a Thousand Corpses, the masterpiece, The Devil's Rejects, and Three from Hell. Do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
Say that again.
Do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
I like them slow. Wow, look at that little fly just landed on my screen. I like them slow. I think that's really, I'm from the George Romero camp of kind of lumbering. Yeah. I'm not quite of the 28 days later kind of guy, but you know,
this last, oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. This last question is usually a Sophie's choice, where 2 must die so that 1 may live. But I want to do something a little different with you. 3 men go into a room, but only 1 comes out alive. So still a little bit of a Sophie's choice, but only 1 comes out alive. Chop Top from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Otis from The Devil's Rejects, and Joel from the soap opera Days of Our Lives. Who lives and how?
Well, Joel probably goes down first. The corpse, it's gone. I think Joel probably goes down first, only because he really can't see that well. So I think they pretty much take care of him. So then it would really come down to, but a great reference. I think it would come down to Otis versus Chop Top. And that's a tough one. I think just in terms of cunning, probably Chop Top, maybe, because he's also a soldier, so he's got some training, and also with that plate in his head, he probably has some extra superpowers. I don't know. Otis, I don't know. That's a toss-up. So I would say they both come out alive, or maybe they kill each other and only Joel emerges. Chop Top and Otis go at it and kill each other, and then Joel comes out and goes, "Where's the corpse?"
Is there anything you want to ask me before we're done?
Yeah, what's your favorite movie of those that are in those posters behind you?
And these posters?
Yeah. I see Repo, Devil's Rejects, Chainsaw 2, and Three from Hell.
Well, I really like Devil's Rejects, but I also enjoy Three from Hell, but I also enjoy Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and I also enjoy Repo. But I think because I watched it first, and I think I enjoyed it the most, like when I was like in the early days of me watching horror. I think I like this one the most.
Right
But
on.
I do like myself some scary, like really like dark and disturbing horror. So it is a little bit of a tie, I think, because this one, it has a little bit of a nostalgia factor. I think it's this one.
Right on. Well, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. You know, it's funny because I was just listening to Terry Reid's album Seed of Memory, which I really didn't know about until I watched Devil's Rejects, and that was Seed of Memory and To Be Right, I think with RITE. Those two songs from Terry Reid are in the Devil's Rejects soundtrack, which I think is one of the great soundtracks of all times. So that was today.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm gonna stop this recording.